There is a softness to a midsummer afternoon on Lake Erie that makes you let your guard down completely. You walk across the hot sand at Presque Isle or Edgewater Beach in a t-shirt and sunglasses. The air smells like sunscreen and fresh water. You wade into the water, and it is warm, almost 75 degrees, wrapping around your ankles, then your knees, then your chest. Kids are floating on inflatable rafts just a few yards away. Boats are bobbing gently on the horizon. It feels like a giant contained swimming pool. It is the shallowest, the warmest, and the most geographically accessible of all the Great Lakes. It is deeply familiar. And you do not think, not once, about what this water is actually capable of doing. But that softness is a kind of camouflage. It is a psychological trick played by the landscape. Because underneath this postcard image of a perfect summer day is a body of water that obeys a set of physics so volatile and so uniquely aggressive that it operates more like a predator than a lake. Most people look at Lake Erie and build a wall in their minds. They look at the mighty ocean, or they look further north to Lake Superior, and they understand danger. Superior is deep. Superior is freezing cold. Superior is dark and vast and obviously hostile. Erie is the opposite. The average depth of Lake Erie is only 62 feet. In the western basin near Toledo, it is a mere 24 feet deep. And human logic dictates that shallow means safe. Shallow means it cannot hold the immense kinetic energy required to kill. We assure ourselves that because we can touch the bottom near the shore, we are in control. But the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project logs the numbers every single year. And those numbers tell a story that people on the beach simply refuse to believe. Dozens of drownings, year after year, happening not in the middle of a raging hurricane, but on seemingly average days. Furthermore, the bottom of this shallow lake is a graveyard. It holds the fractured wooden and steel bones of over 2,000 shipwrecks, giving it one of the highest densities of shipwrecks anywhere in the world. Today, we are going to tear down that wall of denial. We are going to look at the mechanics of exactly why the tamest-looking lake in America is actually its most quietly lethal. We are going to look at the physics, the hidden currents, the biological traps, and the sheer atmospheric violence that this basin can produce without warning.
Before we step fully into the water, if you are the kind of person who wants to know the truth about the land and water around you, take a second to subscribe. It helps keep this channel going. And I want you to tell me something. What is the most dangerous or unpredictable body of water you have ever swam in? Drop your story in the comments. I read them. Now let us look at what Lake Erie is hiding from you. The first crack in the illusion of safety comes from the very thing that makes people feel secure: the shallowness. In the ocean, waves are generated by winds blowing over thousands of miles of deep water. When those ocean swells finally reach the coast, they arrive with a long wave period. The time between one wave crest and the next might be 10, 12, or even 15 seconds. If you are standing in the surf and an ocean wave knocks you off your feet, you are submerged, but then the water recedes. You have a massive window of time to plant your feet, stand up, wipe the salt water from your eyes, and take a deep breath before the next wave arrives. The ocean gives you time to recover. Lake Erie does not give you time. When the wind kicks up across Lake Erie, the kinetic energy transfers into the water just like it does in the ocean. But because the lake is so incredibly shallow, that energy has nowhere to go but up. The waves cannot roll deep beneath the surface. They build instantly, and they pack tightly together. The wave period on Lake Erie during a storm, or even just a brisk wind, can be as short as 3 or 4 seconds. This creates what is known as the machine gun effect, or square waves. Imagine you are standing chest deep on a sandbar and the wind suddenly shifts. A wave hits you in the chest and knocks you backward. You lose your footing and go under. Your immediate instinct is to put your feet down, stand up, and breathe. But before your head can even break the surface, the second wave crashes down directly on top of you. It pushes you back into the churning sand. You panic. You scramble for the surface again. And exactly 3 seconds later, the third wave hits you. You do not drown in Lake Erie because the water is infinitely deep. You drown in 4 feet of water because you simply cannot find the air between the waves. The frequency of the water batters you into exhaustion in a matter of minutes. This is how strong, capable, athletic swimmers vanish on a Tuesday afternoon. They get caught in a wave set that offers 0 recovery time. They burn through their oxygen, fighting the rhythm of the water, and once the exhaustion takes over, the quiet, instinctive drowning response begins. They do not wave their arms. They do not scream. They just slip quietly beneath the surface, completely unseen by the people sunbathing 100 yards away. But wave frequency is only the most visible weapon. Even on days when the surface looks manageable, there is an invisible architecture moving beneath the waterline. This is the second reality that people refuse to acknowledge. Lake Erie's shoreline is heavily armored. We have built hundreds of miles of concrete breakwalls, steel sheet piers, and stone jetties to protect harbors and beaches. To a swimmer, a concrete pier looks like a safe harbor. It looks like a boundary, a place where the water is tamed. People love to wade out along the breakwalls, feeling the solid structure next to them. But water is a physical mass, and it obeys the laws of fluid dynamics. When the wind pushes thousands of gallons of water toward the beach, and that water gets trapped between a natural sandbar and a man-made concrete pier, the pressure builds. That massive volume of water has to escape back out into the open lake. It cannot go through the concrete, so it seeks the path of least resistance. It turns and runs rapidly parallel to the wall, accelerating as it channels out toward the deep. This is a structural rip current. It is silent. It does not look dangerous. In fact, the surface of a rip current often looks slightly darker, flatter, and calmer than the breaking waves around it. It is a visual trap. You are wading along the pier. The water is at your waist. You take one step off the edge of a hidden sandbar, and suddenly your foot finds nothing but open water. You drop down to your chin. Instantly, you feel a gentle, then violent tug. The ground is gone, and the water is pulling you along the concrete wall at speeds of up to 5 or 6 feet per second. Olympic swimmers top out at around 6 feet per second. You cannot outswim it. Your instinct, the deep primitive drive inside your brain, tells you to swim straight back toward the beach, or to try and grab the concrete wall. You swim against the current. You swim with everything you have. Your heart rate skyrockets to 180 beats per minute. Lactic acid floods your muscles. You are burning massive amounts of oxygen, and you are not moving an inch closer to safety. The wall is covered in slick green algae, offering no handhold. The lake does not actively drag you under, it just acts as an endless, frictionless treadmill, exhausting your body until your muscles fail, your lungs burn, and you let yourself sink. The wall that looked like safety is the very mechanism that powers the trap. We are deep into the mechanics of this lake now. We have looked at how the shallow basin creates a machine gun rhythm of waves, and how the man-made structures turn the returning water into invisible rivers. If you are still with me, you are clearly someone who actually wants to understand the environments you step into. You want the reality, not the postcard. So if you haven't yet, this is the perfect moment to subscribe, because the mechanisms we have talked about so far are things you can at least try to anticipate. From here, the lake stops being something you can predict and becomes something that defies reason entirely. What happens when the danger does not come from a wave and does not come from a current? What happens when the entire lake simply tilts? Lake Erie sits on a southwest to northeast axis. If you look at a map, it stretches like a long, shallow bowl from Toledo, Ohio, up toward Buffalo, New York. This geographic orientation aligns perfectly with the prevailing wind patterns of the North American continent. Imagine a bathtub half filled with water. If you place your hand in the water and push steadily toward one end, the water level on the side you are pushing from drops, exposing the bottom of the tub. The water on the opposite side piles up, rising dangerously close to the rim. When a sustained, powerful wind blows across Lake Erie from the southwest for a period of hours or days, it acts just like that hand in the bathtub. The sheer force of the wind physically pushes the entire mass of the lake's water toward the New York shore. At the western end, in Toledo, the water level can drop by 5, 8, or even 10 feet. Boats are suddenly left resting in the mud. The lake literally vanishes from the shoreline. Then the wind stops. When the atmospheric pressure normalizes and that invisible hand lifts, all of that piled-up water has to find its equilibrium. It sloshes violently back toward the west. This is called a seiche or a meteotsunami. It is not a localized wave. It is a massive, shifting wall of water, a silent surge that moves across the lake, completely independent of the weather directly above you. You could be standing on a pier in Ohio under a clear blue sky. The wind is completely calm. And suddenly, the water level rises 3 feet in a matter of minutes. A wall of kinetic energy surges over the breakwall, sweeping everything, tackle boxes, lawn chairs, and fishermen, straight into the churning water. There is no warning. There is no dark cloud on the horizon to tell you it is coming. The seiche is the ghost of a storm that happened 100 miles away, returning to claim whatever is standing too close to the edge. It is a reminder that in a shallow enclosed basin, energy never really dies. It just travels. But even this, the sudden violence of a meteotsunami, is just a matter of kinetic energy. It is just water moving fast. If we really want to understand why Lake Erie is fundamentally different from the others, why it requires a completely different kind of respect, we have to look past the physical movement of the water. We have to look at what the water actually contains. Because Lake Erie does not just kill with kinetic force. It kills with biology. This is the third thread. The catch that makes this lake a true anomaly. The western basin of Lake Erie is fed by the Maumee River, which drains a massive watershed of agricultural land across Ohio and Indiana. Every time it rains, millions of pounds of phosphorus and nitrogen from fertilizers wash off the farm fields, down the river, and directly into the shallow, sun-baked waters of the lake. You have warm water. You have shallow depths that allow sunlight to penetrate all the way to the bottom. And you have an endless all-you-can-eat buffet of chemical nutrients. You have inadvertently created the largest, most perfect incubator for cyanobacteria on the continent. People call it blue-green algae, but it is not algae at all. It is a type of bacteria that has existed on Earth for billions of years. And as it blooms, turning the lake into a thick, vibrant, unnatural shade of neon green, it produces a chemical called microcystin. Microcystin is a potent hepatotoxin. It attacks the liver.
It is a poison that is completely invisible within a single drop of water. Yet it exists in such massive quantities during a late summer bloom that it fundamentally alters the ecosystem. This is where the denial reaches its absolute peak.
People walk down to the beach in August. The water looks like green paint. It smells like rotting vegetation. And yet, because it is summer, because they drove 2 hours to get to the lake, they let their dogs run off the leash and splash into the surf. The dog drinks the water. They swallow the microcystin. And within hours, the dog begins to seize, their liver failing, dying from a threat that made no sound and caused no physical trauma. It does not stop with animals. In August of 2014, the bloom over the Western Basin grew so massive and so dense that it drifted directly over the water intake pipes for the city of Toledo. The cyanobacteria was sucked into the municipal water system. Almost 500,000 people woke up to an urgent alert. Do not drink the water. Do not touch the water. Do not boil the water. Boiling it would only rupture the bacteria cells and release even more of the toxin. For 3 days, a major American city was paralyzed, completely cut off from its own fresh water supply, while sitting right on the shore of one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world. This is the ultimate trap of Lake Erie. You do not even have to step into the surf. You do not have to be caught in a structural rip current. And you do not have to be swept away by a seiche for the lake to reach you. You just have to turn on your tap. When you put all of these pieces together on the table, the picture of the lake changes entirely. The dot on the map looks the same, but the reality is fundamentally altered. You have a basin so shallow that it forces waves to break with a machine gun frequency, giving a swimmer 0 time to breathe. You have miles of man-made concrete walls that turn escaping water into invisible high-speed rivers flowing out to the dark. You have an atmospheric alignment that allows the wind to tilt millions of gallons of water like a bathtub, creating silent, clear-sky tsunamis. And you have a biological incubator that brews a liver toxin so powerful it can shut down a city. All of this is happening in the exact same body of water. All of this is happening right where millions of people go to relax, to drink a beer on the sand, to let their kids build sandcastles. Nobody who wades into the water at Edgewater or Presque Isle thinks they are stepping into an active volatile machine. They look at the flat horizon and they see peace. They rely on the fact that because nothing bad happened the last 10 times they swam here, nothing bad will happen today. That is the agreement we silently sign with the natural world. We agree to pretend that because a place is heavily populated, it has been tamed. But the lake never signed that agreement. The lake does not know that it is a recreation area. It only knows the laws of fluid dynamics, atmospheric pressure, and biological growth. So here is what all of this is really about. It is not about keeping you out of the water. It is not about instilling a blind, irrational panic of lakes. It is about respect. It is about recognizing that the world around us is infinitely more complex and infinitely more powerful than the paved roads and concrete walls make it appear. The danger of Lake Erie is not that it is inherently malicious. The danger is that we look at its warm, shallow water and we decide that it is harmless. We let the aesthetic of the landscape overwrite the physics of the reality. The softest-looking water is always the most deceiving. The wave period that leaves no room for air. The structural current running silently along the pier. The ghost of a storm pushing a wall of water under a clear blue sky. The neon green bloom hovering slowly over the intake pipe. They are all still out there right now,
operating beneath the surface of the postcard, moving perfectly in sync with the wind and the temperature. Just waiting. The way this lake has waited since long before we ever decided to build a beach on its edge. If this changed the way you will walk down to the shoreline, subscribe and stay for the next one. And the next time you look out over a calm, shallow stretch of water, remember what it might be hiding.